It's Preds versus Jets tonight at Bridgestone Arena. One of the most important games for the Nashville Predators this season. A preview coming up on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start out with a special shout out to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys and we appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer for Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer for Penalty Box Radio.
A lot to get to on today's show. It is one of the most important games of the year for the Nashville Predators. They take on those old buddies up north, the Winnipeg Jets. Have always kind of been a thorn in the Predators' side here in the past couple of years. A big game tonight at Bridgestone Arena. The Preds win. They're in the postseason, folks. It's win and in. Plus, we are going to be doing a game of what's more likely. A couple different scenarios that Preds fans have been talking about on Twitter here over the past couple of weeks. We will dive into a couple of different scenarios and try to decide which one is the more likely to happen. All of that coming up on today's show. First, though, want to mention today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get a $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, Ann, let's start with a game that is for all the marbles, or at the very least, some of the marbles.
It is marble worthy.
Marbles will be on the line tonight. Nashville Predators take on the Winnipeg Jets at Bridgestone Arena, 7 o'clock Central puck drop. The way it stands now, the Jets have a firm grasp on that number 3 spot in the Central Division standings. They're at 100 points. Predators are at 94. So not looking likely that the Predators are going to surpass the Jets, but they win tonight. They're still in it. And it doesn't matter if they are in or not, because if the Predators win tonight, they're in the postseason, folks. It is a win and in situation for Nashville tonight. So I ask you, Ann Kimmel, what is the vibe going into tonight's game?
I think it's creating a perfect vibe because you have one of the last home games at Bridgestone Arena. There's another one. I think we have one more home game after this. So we're looking at the regular season winding down at Bridgestone Arena. You have a Predators team that is generating a ton of excitement around the city, a Predators team that is literally 1 point from being in the postseason. This game tonight can put the Predators into the postseason. It is against a Central Division rival, a team, like you said, that has been a little hitch in the giddy up for Nashville in recent seasons. I think the vibe tonight is going to be really good. As a coach, as a player, these are the games that you lay in bed as a 7-year-old and 8-year-old and you kind of dream about. Like, I want the game where it means so much against a really good team. And I think that's what this is cooking up to be tonight at Bridgestone Arena for the Nashville Predators. And, I think we all would agree that a strong showing against Winnipeg would go a really long way, I think, for the fan base, getting those good vibes going into a postseason run. So here is hoping the Predators can come out and maybe lay some smack down. Maybe.
Yeah, you want to see, a good performance from Nashville tonight because, as we mentioned yesterday, it feels like just every game from here on out is going to have a little bit of a playoff vibe. At this point, of course, Winnipeg, on the other hand, they're trying to lock up a top 3 spot in the Central Division. So they're definitely going to have something to play for in this game. It's the second to the last game, home game for Nashville. The last one is going to be against Columbus this Saturday. But, the Nashville Predators end the season and at Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is a team currently fighting to stay in the playoff hunt right now.
Yeah.
So it's not like, basically every game the Nashville Predators are going to play from here on out is going to have some sort of meaning to it, whether it's for them fighting for position or fighting for position. It's been a long day, folks. Or the other team kind of fighting for their playoff lives at this point. So, if you're a coach, this is kind of your first look at, how your team is going to handle playoff hockey to an extent. How are they going to match the intensity? How are they going to match, the extra bit of physicality? How are you going to match, a vibe where every single goal, every single turn in a game is going to have some sort of critical impact on how the season turns out for them? So I'm curious to see how the how the Preds handle it.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to get that postseason feel in a game like this. I really do think it's going to have, like you said, it's going to have that playoff feel, and I think it's important for the fans to really kind of get that vibe and get it going and get Bridgestone Arena ready for a postseason push. I also think it's really important to have that feel to this game for players like Tommy Novak, for Luke Evangelista, for some of the guys who, they haven't had a lot of postseason. Evangelista hasn't had any postseason games in the NHL. So let's amp it up tonight again, in a game that's got a lot of stakes. It's for some of the marbles. And
there are marbles on the line in this game.
There are marbles out there for the taking. And you know what? Let's give them a taste at this point of what is this going to feel like? What is the pressure going to feel like? What is the vibe going to feel like? What is going to be required to take it up the next step? This is a perfect game to sort of practice a postseason game for some of these players.
What do you think is the key tonight for the Nashville Predators to take a win?
Yeah, you know what? One of the things that I think is going to be huge for the Predators is finishing. We've talked about Nashville, they've generated a lot of shots, these past couple of games, definitely ran into a hot goaltender against the Islanders. New Jersey Devils, they fought to get 3 in the shootout, 3 points or 3 goals, including a shootout. I think Nashville has to really work on finishing those chances, because Winnipeg does not give much up. They have the number 1 goaltending duo in the NHL right now. And this is a team that doesn't usually give up a lot of goals. So I think if Nashville wants to be successful, first of all, get the jump on Winnipeg. And I think you've got to finish. We've seen, I still have nightmares of Roman Josi in an open net and the shot not going in, in some different games. This is not one of those games where you want that to happen, because there are going to be limited opportunities at an open net. So finishing for me, I think, is the number 1 thing the Predators have to focus on against Winnipeg and against these goaltenders.
Yeah, you mentioned the game in March, the one that was part of the Nashville Predators' big epic point streak. The Nashville Predators got out to a early 4-0 lead, and I think really sort of put the pressure on Winnipeg to try to respond. Respond is the key word for me tonight, Anne, because I think the key for the Nashville Predators is being able to respond to sort of the peaks and valleys of this game. Look, Winnipeg has played pretty good over the past week or so. Remember, they had that big slide a while back that caused the Nashville Predators to get back within striking range of the standings. And since then, they've won 3 straight. And it's been the big guns for Winnipeg that have helped them do that. So, it's Winnipeg. There's going to be guys that go out there and are able to get something done against you. That there's going to be some good pressure from the Jets. You're going to get, some good pressure on Hellebuyck, but maybe he closes the door. how are you going to respond? Are you going to kind of keep pushing and then sort of panic and then make a mistake? Or are you going to sort of be able to bounce back and sort of survive a challenge in this
Yes.
game? Are you going to go down 1-0 early and feel like you're having to rush and play catch up the rest of the game? Or are you going to go down 1-0 early, do the Jay-Z dirt off your shoulder, and wind up being able to just continue to play your game and maybe dig yourself back in it or put yourself back in it with some good play?
Yeah, I love that, playing your game. I think that is the key for Nashville is just focus on playing your game. And there have been some games I feel like where maybe they have been gripping the stick a little bit tight. You felt a little bit against New Jersey, when they were down 2-1 before Evangelista scored that power play goal. Like you almost felt like maybe they were pushing a little more. And it's like, no, play 60 minutes of Nashville's hockey, the style of hockey that they played in that point streak. They've had some slower starts in recent games. Let's just do 60 minutes of Predators hockey and see where that takes us against a team like the Winnipeg Jets. Also, don't underestimate special teams in this one, because this may be one of those games. They're pretty evenly matched in special teams. This may be one of those games that could be decided by something like a power play goal. So keep your eye on that. Heaven help us.
Yeah, exactly. Every single moment of this game is going to be critical over the course of the game. And it's going to be interesting to see how the team responds. This is playoff hockey, folks. Every moment in the game matters from here on out for the rest of the season. As we mentioned, 7:00 Central puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. We'll, of course, be back here tomorrow to have some recap for you. Until we get there, though, we have more to talk about, including a game of what's more likely. We're going to have a couple of different scenarios, throw out 2 options for those scenarios, and debate which one of those are more likely to happen. We're going to get into that in just 1 second. First, though, want to mention today's episode is once again brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing. We have the national championship game last night. Congratulations. Insert team here. We recorded this before the game started. But needless to say, there's a lot of great sports happening right now. And FanDuel is your place to bet on every game, no matter what league you're following. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Again, that's $150 win or lose. And you can use that $150 to bet on everything from slap shots to home run to slam dunk, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Ann, let's play a little game here to break up this mundane Tuesday morning. Let's do a game of what's more likely. So here's how it works. We have a scenario that we're going to throw out. We're going to give 2 options for that scenario, and then we're going to debate which one of those we think is most likely to happen.
I like it.
All right. So now that we are squared away on the rules, Ann, would you like to throw the first scenario out there for us?
I would, and I'm going to break the rules right off the bat with the first scenario.
Great. Love it.
That's what we do at Locked On Preds.
Exactly.
So mine has 4 scenarios, but just hear me out.
Okay.
Hear me out. So Nashville Predators have Winnipeg left. Obviously tonight, Winnipeg, Chicago, Columbus, Pittsburgh. We have 4 games left. The Nashville Predators will go 4-0, 3-1, 2-2, 1-3. I didn't even put it out there, but 0-4 in the last 4 games of the regular season.
You have to have a little bit of optimism in there.
Oh yeah, like 0-4, get real. That's not even. Yeah. Okay. So how do you think they're going to finish these last 4 games? I'm very curious where you kind of see them, where you see them landing here.
You know what? I'm going to say they're going to go 3-1.
I like this. Why?
I think maybe this is a bold prediction here. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Maybe there's going to be some people in Manitoba adding me tomorrow, asking me to eat crow. But I think the Preds are going to beat the Jets at home at Bridgestone Arena.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to take care of business on Friday and Saturday against Chicago and Columbus. And I think they're going to kind of maybe rest some guys, maybe rotate some people in and out. You maybe give Kevin Lankin a start. While Pittsburgh, on the other hand, is going to basically put everybody out there because they need to win that game. Kind of like, remember when, in the weird 2021 season where Carolina played Nashville the last 2 games of the season before the playoffs started, and they were kind of sort of resting people while Nashville was trying to fight for that playoff spot. I can envision a situation like that, and I think Pittsburgh, it might, win that game in front of their home fans. So that's my prediction. I also wouldn't be surprised if there was just, maybe the Preds win both of those games and flub something else in there. But I'm going to go 3-1. What are you thinking?
I wish that we could answer this question after tonight's game, because I really feel like how the Winnipeg game goes is really going to set a tone. But I am with you. I feel like Nashville could do something tonight against Winnipeg. And if they do, what's funny is the game that I'm a little bit concerned about, and this sounds strange, is Columbus.
Why not? It's always the most random team.
The most random team. It's the second game of a back-to-back. Hopefully by then Nashville is in. They're going to, like you said, kind of maybe be resting some people. And Columbus every so often comes out of somewhere and they beat somebody like the Colorado Avalanche, or Vegas or Edmonton. And you're like, y'all are supposed to be bad. So I would say 3-1. Look, here's what's real. Growing up around Pittsburgh Penguins fans, I just can't surrender that game.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I do think that's going to be a tough one because they're going to throw everything at the wall in Pittsburgh to make sure that they are in that postseason. So I do think it'll be tricky. But I would say 2-2, optimistically 3-1.
I would say 3-1 is a record I'd be happy with.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. 2-2, I feel like you would drop points. Like there's a missed opportunity somewhere in 2-2. Okay, you've inspired me, Anne. I think I'm gonna break the rules that I set out, and I'm gonna add a third optimistic option to this question. So let's just, fingers crossed, assume Nashville does pick up a point sometime in the next 4 games. Right. Nashville Predators are going to be in the playoffs.
Okay.
What's more likely? They're going to finish in the 3rd Central Division spot. Mm-hmm. That was the optimistic thing I answered.
That is very optimistic.
They're going to finish in the 1st wild card spot,
mm-hmm.
or they're going to finish in the 2nd wild card spot. Which of those finishes is most likely to happen, Anne?
Let me pull up my hockey standings so I can look at our numbers right now and see where we're at. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a optimist. I mean, you've met me. I am a optimist through and through. I am with you in that I don't necessarily see them getting into that 3rd spot. I don't see Winnipeg losing enough.
As I said, it would be very optimistic.
Now, Winnipeg has a wicked final schedule. They play Dallas, they play Colorado, they play Seattle, and they play Vancouver. So I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm going to say that I really feel like Nashville is going to finish in that top wild card spot, the number 1 wild card spot. Even though Vegas is in the 2nd spot right now and they have 2 games in hand, I just feel like, especially if they can win tonight, the momentum will be there to keep collecting points and getting that spot. So that's what I'm going to say.
So Vegas is right there with 2 games in hand. You also have to remember the Preds are 1 point ahead of the Los Angeles Kings, who are in that number 3 spot in the Pacific
That's
Division. So even if
true.
Vegas passes Nashville, LA could drop out. Here's my only thing with that. You mentioned
Yeah.
both LA. LA has 1 game in hand, Vegas has
Mhm.
2. The Golden Knights schedule for the rest of the year, it's tough this week.
Yeah.
They played Vancouver last night. That happened after we recorded this, so don't know how
Right.
that turned out. But then they have this week, they have Edmonton. They have Minnesota, who does give teams some trouble here
Yeah.
and
You
there. And
never
then
know.
they have Colorado on Sunday. A big game on national TV. Then they finish with Chicago and Anaheim, which that's nothing, but that's a tough road this week. LA, on the other hand, has they've got no one on their
Really?
schedule. I think their toughest game is Calgary. If that tells you where they
Okay.
are, they have Calgary, they have Anaheim twice, Minnesota, and then Chicago.
Okay, that's
I
not
guess Minnesota could be considered their toughest game, but basically the 4 remaining teams they play over their 5 games, none of them are in a playoff spot.
yeah.
So they might have an easier road than either of those 2 other teams. So that's kind of why I'm saying, like, I think Nashville might have. I think there's realistically more points available to those other 2 teams than Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah. Could
Yeah.
be. All right, I've got an easy one.
Okay.
This one only has 2 options. So easy. What's more likely? Roman Josi is nominated for the Norris, or Andrew Brunette is nominated for the Jack Adams?
Hmm.
And you can say neither or both. Look at me. Breaking the
Yeah.
rules.
The Jack Adams is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are going to look at the Nashville Predators. They should look at the Nashville Predators and think this was a team that we didn't really have a lot of high hopes for, that have somehow slugged their way into the playoff contention right now. Like it feels like the Preds are one of those classic teams that do that. The only thing that I would kind of say is, are there other coaches out there that would probably get first billing for Coach of the Year
Yeah.
over Andrew Brunette?
Yeah.
Like I would say, like I would say, I'm just trying to think of somebody off my head. Pierre Laviolette in New York.
Yeah. Yep.
That's somebody that I think is very much going to be considered for Coach of the Year, especially because it seems like the Rangers are going to win the President's Trophy. Jim Montgomery again in Boston. Remember,
True.
Boston lost a lot of people, and a lot of people are like, there's no Patrice Bergeron, there's no this and that, and they're first place in the Atlantic Division right now. Paul Maurice in Florida, I think, is another strong possibility considering how well the Panthers have played this year. You've got, Pete DeBoer in Dallas. Dallas is red hot. You got Rick Tocchet in Vancouver for what he's done. I wouldn't even put it somebody like, Rick Bowness in Winnipeg for how the Jets have kind of performed after their turmoil this offseason. So I think the Andrew Brunette to the Jack Adams is maybe a little bit of a tougher road than, let's say, Roman Josi, who's already getting some love from some analytics people around the country. So I would say more likely a Josi nomination for Norris.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you for the exact same reasons. I think you can make a variety of arguments for the Jack Adams. And I think it's pretty cut and dry how you kind of come to conclusions about Norris Trophy nominees. So I don't think Roman Josi is going to win it, but if he's not nominated, I will have things to say.
You will fight someone, Anne.
I will fight someone.
Yeah.
I don't know who. I'll fight them all. I'll fight them all.
And we'll find out who after this break. We'll also have another What's More Likely, this time about some pending unrestricted free agents, Anne.
That's going to be interesting. We're going to dive into all of that Before we do, want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Sleeper. We're talking about the postseason. We're talking about the off season, but we want to remind you that it is still the perfect season to play daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether players like Forsberg, O'Reilly, Josi, Connor, Hellebuyck will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win your 100 times bet on Sleeper, you have to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Preds fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you're going to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.
All right, Ann, we're playing a game of what's more likely, where we throw out a scenario, and then we offer 2, or it's the rules have become 3 or possibly 4 options for that scenario, and then we debate which is more likely to happen. Here's an interesting one, Ann.
Okay.
And I'm not 100% convinced either of these happen, but I want to know what's more likely. 2 unrestricted free agents who have been catching some eyes here in Nashville. Are the Preds more likely to re-sign Alexander Carrier, or are they more likely to re-sign Jason Zucker?
Oh my goodness. This is a really tough one. This is a tough one. Here's what I would say. I think they are probably more likely, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but I think they're more likely to re-sign Jason Zucker than Carrier. And here is why. And I'm not saying I agree with it, but here's why. I think that they have some pieces more ready in the pipeline to jump in on the blue line than they are sure of what they have to jump in as a forward. And you really know what you're getting with Jason Zucker. Like, you've seen it. You see how the system works with him. You know, is he playing the best hockey of his entire life? No, not yet. But I think you can tell that he's a good fit. I think they like his veteran presence in the locker room. I think, you know, they've been very pleased with this pickup. I hate the idea of not re-signing Alexander Carrier. I hate that idea, especially because he and Lazon are besties. And why would you break them up? But I just think, you know, they've got Stasny, they've got Del Gaizo. I think they're going to take a long look at Tanner Molendyk, although I'm not saying he's going to make the roster out of training camp, but I think they feel like they've got pieces closer and more NHL ready on the blue line. And so that's why I'm going to say they're going to go Jason Zucker.
That's a good take.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good take, and I love that you put it in terms of, I think the Nashville Predators really want to make some room for some people on the blue line. Spencer Stastny, who's up there right now because a couple of people are injured. That's the one we heard at the deadline that the Nashville Predators really wanted to clear a spot for because they really believe he's NHL ready.
Yes.
You know, we have heard some also, like, as you mentioned, some good things about Tanner Molendyk, although he's probably going to be in Milwaukee for next year, or back in juniors for a year. I can't remember what his age situation is off the top of my head. That's an Eric Dene question. You also have to remember, Ann, who did they just sign out of college a couple of weeks ago? Ryan Ufko. That's a guy that some people think are, you know, he has a good camp next year. He might be NHL ready.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think there's more options in the pipeline on defense. And I think Nashville desperately wants to clear a pathway to get some of these guys up and ready. Whereas I think there's more of a slow burn offense, because I still think they want to develop Joakim Kamel a little bit more. I think they still want some more seasoning for Leroux and Svechkov.
Agreed.
And it sounds like we're going to be at least a year or two away from any sort of Matthew Wood sighting. So it seems like for the Nashville Predators, you would want somebody like Zucker to kind of help in the middle of the lineup. And look, we know what he did, 30 goal scorer just a year ago. And now he's coming into a situation where you're playing for Andrew Burnett. You look around and, hey, Gustav Nyquist just had his career best year. A lot of people thought he was damaged goods. Ryan O'Reilly having his best season in years. And a lot of people thought, oh, he's more of a third line utility guy at this point in his career. So, maybe Zucker looks at it and said, with a full season, with a full camp, and maybe with some, more consistent line mates from here on out, maybe this is worth, maybe a bit of a cheaper 1-year contract or 2-year contract just to, sort of be here and play with some of these younger guys.
Yeah. And I love the idea, if you sign Zucker, you could bring up for periods of time a Leroux, a Fedor Svechkov, and you can put them with somebody with this veteran experience too. So I see the logic, but who will be the most likely to be cast in Bridgerton if they don't sign Alexander Carrier?
That's a Mark Jankowski issue at that point.
Yeah, I don't think Barry Trotz is wrestling with that quite like I am, but let's see what they do.
Yeah. All right. I think we have time for one more, Ann.
All right. I've got a very easy one. It's somebody we just talked about. What's more likely? Gus Nyquist repeats next season, very similar statistics or better than what we saw this season, or is it more likely that Gus Nyquist falls back to earth?
Define fall back to earth.
Back to where he was, let's see, in 2021-22, he played 82 games, 18 goals, 53 points. That was his best season with Columbus. So I would say maybe a little, just back to kind of his average. Do you think we're going to get another year?
If that's his average, like if you can get 53 points out of Gustav Nyquist at age 35, which is what he's going to be next year.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
He's got 71 points this season. Do you think he's going to be a 60, 70 point scorer next season? Or you think we're talking 40, 50?
I hesitate to say that he's going to be at this level again next year. I think he can still play at a very good level.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can still play very well, and I think he can be a big depth contributor to Nashville. And I'm not saying it's out of the question that he scores 70 points again next year. I'm just saying, based on his age, based on his history, I wouldn't put the bank on him repeating this year next year. And I could maybe see the same for Ryan O'Reilly as well. But that's okay, because you have some younger people in the pipeline that you would like to step up and maybe take over some of the scoring burden that Nyquist gives up.
Yeah. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say we see pretty similar stats next season from Nyquist. I really do. I just think the system fits him so well. I think playing with Forsberg and O'Reilly has fit him well. Even if you shift one of them out, I really feel like Nyquist is going to be a guy who elevates the next guy in, if they move O'Reilly or Forsberg. So I'm just going to put it out there and say, like, Nyquist is going to repeat next season.
Yeah. I would hope so.
Yeah.
That would be ideal, right?
I mean, I vote yes, but again,
would love for that to happen.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, big game tonight. Predators take on the Winnipeg Jets at Bridgestone Arena. Oh, as we've mentioned, and there are going to be marbles at stake.
Get the marbles, y'all.
Yeah, there will be some marbles, and we will discuss the marbles on tomorrow's Locked On Predators podcast. Until then, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.